Why some people instantly gain respect. Have you ever noticed that some people walk into a room and instantly command respect? They don't raise their voice. They don't try to impress anyone. They don't demand attention. And yet, people naturally listen when they speak. Meanwhile, someone else can work harder, speak louder, and try everything to be noticed, only to be overlooked. So what's the difference? Is it confidence, status, money? Or is there something much deeper happening inside the human mind? Here's something fascinating. Psychologists have found that the human brain begins forming judgments about a person's competence, confidence, and social status within seconds of meeting them. Long before you've had the chance to prove yourself, people have already started deciding how much respect they're likely to give you. But here's the surprising part. The qualities that earn genuine respect are often very different from the ones most people spend years trying to develop. So why do some people instantly gain respect wherever they go? What psychological signals are they sending without even realizing it? And more importantly, can anyone learn to earn that same level of respect? By the end of this video, you'll understand the psychology behind respect, the hidden behaviors that make people naturally command attention, and several research-backed principles you can begin applying immediately. Welcome back to the channel, or if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm a psychologist, and today we're exploring one of the most misunderstood aspects of human behavior. Why some people instantly gain respect, while others constantly struggle to be taken seriously. We'll look at the psychology behind first impressions, confidence, social status, and the subtle behaviors that shape how people perceive you, often without a single word being spoken. If understanding the hidden mechanics of human behavior is something you care about, make sure you're subscribed, because every week we explore the psychology behind the mind, relationships, and the invisible patterns that influence our everyday lives. Now, let's begin with the first impression your brain makes before you've even said a word. Let's start with one of the most important distinctions in this entire topic, the difference between status and respect. Status is about your position, your title, your visible markers of success, and it can be granted to you externally without you doing anything in the moment to earn it. Respect is different. Respect is something other people's nervous systems grant you in real time, based on specific behavioral cues they're reading, often unconsciously, within seconds of interacting with you. This matters because you can have enormous status and still fail to generate genuine respect in a room, and you can walk in with no title at all and still command it immediately, because respect is being earned moment to moment through behavior, not handed out based on your resume. So what exactly are people's brains picking up on so quickly? Research on nonverbal communication points to something called behavioral consistency, the alignment between what someone says, how they say it, and what their body is doing while they say it. When these three channels are in sync, calm words delivered with a steady voice and relaxed, grounded posture, your nervous system reads that person as safe and credible almost instantly. When there's a mismatch, nervous words paired with an overly loud voice, or confident words paired with fidgeting hands and darting eyes, other people's brains pick up on that incongruence rapidly, often before they can even consciously articulate what felt off. This is part of why so many attempts at projecting confidence backfire. People focus on the words alone, standing taller, speaking more assertively, while the underlying nervous system state, the actual physiological calm or lack of it, leaks through everything else, and other people read that leak far more than they read the words. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting, because this means the people who command effortless respect aren't necessarily performing confidence at all. They're often simply regulated, meaning their nervous system isn't in a state of threat or anxiety in that moment, and that internal regulation shows up automatically as calm, grounded, congruent behavior, without any conscious effort to manufacture it. Researchers studying social hierarchies in both humans and primates have found that individuals who maintain physiological calm under social pressure are consistently rated as higher status by observers, regardless of their actual rank or title. Because calm under pressure is, evolutionarily speaking, a reliable signal of genuine capability. A truly threatened or incapable individual typically cannot maintain that physiological steadiness convincingly for long. There's also a specific behavioural marker worth naming directly, something researchers call low approach anxiety, paired with selective engagement. People who command instant respect typically don't rush to fill every silence. They don't over-explain themselves, and they don't chase validation by talking more when a room goes quiet. Instead, they tend to speak less frequently, but with more weight, pause comfortably without rushing to fill the space, and engage selectively rather than indiscriminately. This pattern signals something important to other people's social tracking systems. This person doesn't appear to need anything from me right now, and that absence of visible need, paradoxically, makes people want to lean in rather than withdraw, because human social instincts are highly attuned to detecting neediness. And neediness, even subtle neediness, tends to lower perceived status, almost automatically. Another factor worth examining closely is something called appropriate self-disclosure boundaries. People who command genuine respect tend to share personal information selectively and intentionally, rather than oversharing in an attempt to quickly build connection or be liked. Research on impression formation has found that moderate, well-timed self-disclosure increases perceived trustworthiness. But excessive early disclosure, sharing too much too quickly, often has the opposite effect. It can read, even unconsciously, as a sign of poor internal boundaries or unmet emotional needs being directed at the wrong audience. If any of this is resonating with you so far, go ahead and drop a comment telling me about someone in your life who commands this kind of effortless respect, and what specifically you've noticed about how they carry themselves. I read through these regularly. And if this video is helping you see something new, take a second to hit that like button. It genuinely helps this reach more people who might benefit from it. I want to tell you about a patient I worked with. I'll call him Desmond. He was 42 years old, a mid-level manager at a logistics company, who came to me because he felt consistently overlooked and undermined in meetings, despite having, by every objective measure, more experience and better judgment than several colleagues who seemed to command the room effortlessly. As we worked together, what became clear was that Desmond, in an attempt to be seen as competent, had developed a habit of over-explaining every point he made, anticipating objections before anyone had raised them, and filling almost every silence in a meeting with additional clarification or justification. From the outside, this read not as competence, but as a kind of low-grade anxiety, a need for reassurance that other people picked up on instinctively, even though Desmond himself wasn't consciously aware he was doing it. We also discovered that Desmond had grown up with a highly critical parent who required constant justification for even small decisions, and that pattern of preemptive over-explaining had simply followed him into adulthood as a deeply ingrained habit. Once Desmond began practicing deliberate pauses after making a point, resisting the urge to immediately justify or expand on it, something shifted noticeably in how colleagues responded to him. Within a matter of weeks, he reported that people had started directing more questions specifically to him in meetings, not because he'd changed what he knew, but because he'd changed how that knowledge was being delivered. So here's what you can actually practice to build this in yourself. The first tool is deliberate pausing after speaking. Once you've made your point, resist the instinct to immediately add more, justify or soften it. Let the silence sit for a beat or two longer than feels comfortable. This single habit does more to shift how you're perceived than almost any other single behaviour, because it signals genuine confidence in what you've already said, rather than anxious uncertainty needing constant reinforcement. The second tool is regulating your nervous system before high-stakes interactions, since, as we discussed, your internal physiological state leaks through far more than your words do. A few minutes of slow, deliberate breathing before a meeting or important conversation, particularly extending your exhale longer than your inhale, measurably shifts your body out of a threat response and into a calmer state, which then shows up automatically in your posture, your voice, and your overall presence, without requiring any conscious performance on your part. The third tool is practicing selective self-disclosure, sharing personal information thoughtfully and in proportion to the relationship and context, rather than as a quick bid for connection or approval. This isn't about becoming closed off or guarded. It's about recognizing that well-timed, appropriately paced openness reads as security, while rushed oversharing often reads, even unconsciously, as a search for reassurance from people who aren't yet positioned to provide it meaningfully. A fourth tool, particularly useful for people like Desmond, is catching and interrupting the habit of preemptive justification. Before automatically explaining why you made a decision or hold a particular view, pause and ask yourself whether anyone has actually asked, or whether you're filling a silence out of old habit rather than genuine necessity. Most of the time, the explanation isn't needed at all, and offering it unprompted often does more to undermine your perceived authority than to support it. Now, an important caution here: these patterns are genuinely learnable for most people with consistent practice, and small changes in pacing and presence tend to compound noticeably over time. But if what's driving your need to over-explain, overshare, or constantly seek reassurance stems from a deeper, more persistent pattern of social anxiety or a history of relationships where your worth felt conditional on performance, that's worth bringing directly to a licensed mental health professional, because there may be more underlying that benefits from structured clinical support, and reaching out for that support is a sign of genuine strength, not weakness. So let's bring this together. The respect that seems to come effortlessly to certain people isn't really about confidence in the way most people imagine it. It's about behavioural consistency between words, tone, and body language, genuine nervous system regulation rather than performed calm, comfortable engagement with silence rather than anxious over-explaining, and appropriately paced self-disclosure rather than rushed oversharing. None of this requires becoming a different person. It requires noticing and gradually adjusting specific, very learnable habits. Pausing after you speak, regulating your body before high-stakes moments, sharing thoughtfully rather than reflexively, and resisting the urge to justify what nobody asked you to justify. If this video gave you a new way of understanding presence and respect, I have a follow-up video right after this one on exactly how chronic stress reshapes the brain over time, and I think you'll find it just as worth your time, so go ahead and click through to that next. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming, and if someone in your life needs to hear this today, take a moment to send it their way. If you're struggling, please don't hesitate to reach out to one. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.